Hello, my name is Kelsey Barber, and I'm a senior here at Westminster College. I'm studying physics, and I'm having a minor in environmental studies. And I want to talk today about Round River's conservation studies. It's a study abroad experience that I did during my sophomore and junior summer. And I went to Mongolia for my program, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's interested in biology, environmental studies, field research really at all, or field work at all. Um, so what is Round River? It's a chance to do international conservation research. So you're actually going to a site, going out in the field, and participating in field research. You get to work with local communities. So Round River doesn't go to a site unless it's been invited by a group of local people. So you're actually working really closely with people from that community. So I know in Mongolia, we were working in strictly protected areas. So we were working a lot with the rangers who work every day in those areas. Round River also uses a switched classroom concept. So what that means in terms of Round River is you spend a lot more time in the field than you do in class. So it's kind of thinking about it like a traditional science class. Normally you have like regular class days, let's say 4 days a week, and then one class day that's a lab day. In Round River, that ratio is switched, so you only spend about like 1 day in actual classes compared with the rest of your days like in the field. So the academics for a semester program, you're there for 12 weeks and you get 15 semester credits. For the summer program, you're there for 6 weeks and you get 9 semester credits. That summer program is what I did. And then also a big piece of the academics is completing a research project. So each student is in charge of completing their own research project. For housing, at least in Mongolia, you're living in tents, you're living in a field most of the time, which is actually really cool. Like the location where we were living, you could hear different things, like you could hear the cattle grazing, or you could hear wolves sometimes, or different birds during the night. So it was actually really interesting to be like actually living in the field. Kind of a day in the life. You wake up and you have breakfast, then you do research in the field, probably eat lunch in the field, probably do more research in the field. And then after dinner, there's a little bit of free time to do like homeworks or readings or things like that. And on days when you're actually in classrooms, basically those research slots are just switched out with time in the classroom. And the way that my program was run, there was like most days we were spending out in the field, and then there would be like a heavy class day. So we could spend more time out in the field on other days. In terms of free time, there isn't much spare time, but for the Mongolia program, at least, the first couple of days you're there, you're actually in the capital, Ulaanbaatar, and so you get the chance to kind of learn a little bit more about Mongolian culture, Mongolian history, different etiquette, things like that. And then when we were actually in the field, we got to spend time going to like different community events. So while we were there, the NAUTM was occurring, so we got to go and watch different horse races or wrestling competitions. We got to participate in archery competitions. So that was really fun. And then also we got to visit some of the rangers' houses. So we were invited over to dinner for a couple of different days. There's a picture of me milking one of the rangers' horses on this slide. So just fun kind of break activities like that. And then I mentioned before, a large part of the program is actually going out and doing research. And each student is in charge of their own project, but it's definitely like everyone contributes to people's projects. So for example, my project was Butterflies of the Darhad Valley. You can see that my name is listed first here. And then Matthew Zappa is the second name. That was another student who was on my Round River program. And he just contributed a lot to this project, so he's listed as the second author on my research. And then in terms of the other projects that were going on that I got to help with, there was my butterfly project. We had a project on small mammals, small mammal trapping. Then we also did research on pica. So we got to scramble around a lot of different talus patches. We had botany research that was happening. We were building a herbarium. And then we also had a bunch of trail cams that we were analyzing photographs from. So those were kind of the projects that were happening while I was in Mongolia. And I kind of wanted to give like a short condensed version of my research, just so you have an idea of what a project could look like. So like I said, I was researching the butterflies of the Darhad Valley. So I was working on logging species diversity, and then I was also researching Parnassia species butterfly location behavior. So the idea behind my research, there were 5 red-listed Parnassius butterfly species in the area of Mongolia where we were. So I wanted to do some more research on those. And the idea behind butterfly research in general, a lot of times, is that butterflies act as environmental indicators. So basically, they go through something called mountain topping, but as temperatures rise, elevation zones kind of shift up mountains. So the ecosystem that was originally at the very top of the mountain is eventually kind of pushed off that mountain. But basically, if we research species like butterflies, then we can see where those elevational zones are and how they change over time. Then also just a large threat to butterflies is grazing, especially in an area like Mongolia where grazing is so important to so many different people's livelihoods and lifestyles. It's important to see how it impacts habitat and vegetation, and in turn impacts species that are dependent on that habitat and vegetation. There's also not an accurate log of butterflies in the Hordal-Sardog region, which is that strictly protected area where we were doing research. So my work was basically the beginnings of logging different butterfly species that inhabit that area. Some goals of the research was to build an understanding of butterfly diversity and distribution within the region. I also wanted to observe butterfly behavior, especially for those red-listed Parnassia species, so I could develop an understanding of plant associations like egg-laying, nectaring, and sheltering. And then I also wanted to identify elevational trends and distribution. So kind of there were 2 parts to my project. There was the species diversity section, and then there was also the Parnassius section. So the species diversity methods, what we would do is we would walk a transect. So it'd be something like walking from one end of a valley to the other end of the valley. And then I would document the habitat and vegetation in that region, and then document all possible butterflies via photographs. And then those photographs were used to identify the different species after we came back from the transect. So the Parnassius methods, those were the red-listed butterflies. What I would do is I would document any sighting of a red-listed butterfly via photograph, and then I would place a GPS point on the butterfly's location, and then make note of plant associations and behavior, and I would try and follow the butterfly so I could get multiple tracking points for each butterfly. In terms of species diversity, the total number of species was 53. You can see their distribution in this graph here. And this is not necessarily a good indicator of where the most butterfly species occurred. It's more of an indicator of the amount of time that we spent in locations. So you can see we spent a lot of time in the base camp, and there's a lot of species recorded at the base camp. In terms of locations of the Parnassius butterflies, we got to see 3 of the 5 red-listed butterflies. Parnassius stupendorfi is definitely the species that we saw the most, and so we collected the most information about them and where they're located, their elevational zones, things like that. But we also did see Parnassius fovus and Parnassius eversmani. In terms of elevational range, the only Parnassius species that we really got a good elevational range on was Parnassius stupendorfi, and the lowest elevation that we saw them at was 2,100 meters. The highest observation was at 2,600 meters. Some future research that could be done based on the research that I did is developing a timeline for butterfly cycles. So when are they mating? When are they laying eggs? When are they dying off? And then also something to observe would be egg-laying behavior and important plant associations for that. And then also more research on the other Parnassius species. would be important research. And then just continuing the inventory of different species in the area. We were only there really for the summer, so we only got that chunk of time that summer season. But it would be important to take other butterfly observations from different times in the year. So that was kind of the rundown of my project. A couple of things to know before I sign off here. Westminster students can apply for what's called the Global Griffin Scholarship, and Red River will actually match that scholarship. So basically that will cut the cost of your program in half. Another thing to note is like you're there to learn, you're there for classes and to get an understanding of what field research is like. So it's not like you're just having fun doing nothing in the middle of nowhere. You are in class and you are taking tests and doing things like that. And then also physical components, like just be ready to like hike around and be out there in the field doing things. And I would also say like you choose your involvement in the program. So if you go into the program really hoping to get a lot out of it, and really hoping to learn about the area, learn about the species in the area, learn field methods, then I think you'll get a lot out of the program. Also feel free to contact me. I have my email on this slide. And I'm also doing a Q&A session on November 4th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. on Zoom. So you can contact me for the link, but I'll also include it in the little blurb that I'm sending out. So yeah, definitely feel free to ask me any questions. I love talking about this experience. And so yeah, I look forward to you reaching out.